United we stand, divided we fall. All for one and one for all. A call to arms, don't be alarmed. Just clench your fist and close your palms. I don't get it, this twisted living where the wicked tell us if we're living right or wrong. Our vision of reality is gone. The ones weak by Yo, what's popping? What's cracking? What's happening? What's all that? How you doing? Hope everything's going good in your day to day. And I'm back at it, man. I wanted to drop something on your mind real quick. So I want to talk about listening, bro, and how important that is to conversation, negotiation, any kind of engagement. You know what I'm saying? All that. How important it is to mindfully listen. The different type of listenings. When to, when not to. How they can be good, how they can be bad, because everything has a good and a bad to it. It's all how you utilize whatever's being, you know what I'm saying, determined as good or bad. So I want to break that down. So when it comes to listening, you feel me? If you're in conversation, you're dialoguing, there's going to be a time you speak and there's going to be a time that you listen, of course, right? Common sense. But effective listening comes when you mindfully listen. And that means that you're receiving the info, whatever's being dropped on you, you know what I'm saying, in conversation, you're receiving it, interpreting it, you know what I'm saying? You interpret it, you organize the info, you know what I'm saying, and then you come to an understanding to respond, you feel me? But all that is the process of listening. Whereas if you hear something, that's just like, you know, you could hear a dime drop, you could hear a quarter drop, you know what I'm saying? You could hear, you know what I'm saying, that's just like sound. But the actual process of organizing what you hear, then now you're beginning to listen. You see what I'm saying? So it's very important, especially in conversation, to be a willing participant in mindfully listening, you know? Because you're gonna play that part, and then there's gonna be a time when you respond to what you've listened to, what you heard, you know? So when it comes to the negative side of listening, that's when you get like defensive listening, where you're listening almost like you're already offended before anybody has a chance to even say, you know what I'm saying, what they gotta say to you. There's a chance that you're gonna take that in offense, and then therefore that leads into ambush listening. And ambush listening is you just listening for the sake of attacking back. Like you're ready to reply. Everything is a front, everything is an attack, and you just listening just to throw it back, you know? That's ambush listening. But once you defensively listen, you know you're listening for the attack, you're waiting for it. Once you hear something that you feel or take as a slight, you know what I'm saying, that you don't like, now you begin to ambush listen. You take it to the next level. Now, as soon as something else that's said, you might have let that first one slide, but then as soon as you hear the next thing, you're ready to attack. That's not mindfully listening. That right there kills conversations. It destroys negotiations, you know what I'm saying? It destroys anything that conversation is necessary for achieving. Treaties, truces, you know? When people are listening, ready to ambush or ready to attack from a defensive position, you don't soak in what's necessary to pull from what you're listening to for the better, you know, for understanding. So it's very important to get into the habit of mindfully listening. That's very important. So check it out, man. Listening, I feel, is very important in conversation, extremely important. That's how you come to the common ground or the understanding, hopefully, that you're looking to come to while you're in conversation. Very important. But if you don't listen accordingly, that listening could be for naught. You know what I'm saying? Things could be misread, misunderstood, misinterpreted, you know what I'm saying? All that, if you improperly listen, you know, because it's one thing to hear and it's another thing to listen. Listening is processing what's heard and organizing it, and then being able to respond, I would say intelligently, whether emotionally intelligent, IQ-wise, intellectually, but an intelligent response nonetheless, you know? That's if you properly listen though. But if you listen defensively, you know, which is the flip side to mindfully listening, if you listen defensively, that's gonna only turn into listening to ambush or ambush listening, you know? You're listening to attack. And then, of course, I feel as though that will kill any attempt or progress toward understanding naturally, you know? If you're listening already feeling offended, because when you're defensively listening, that's the first step before it gets to the ambush listening, you know? You're listening defensively, waiting for a slight, waiting for somebody to say something wrong, you know? There's an opportunity for that person to say the right thing in all sincerity. Not like say the right thing to get something, you know, in an insidious way, you know, but I'm talking about somebody trying to relay something to you or share something with you. In all sincerity, if you're listening defensively, you're waiting for them to slip up and say the wrong thing. Whereas when you're in the ambush listening mode and your mind has already been made up, like, okay, I got an issue. Now you're ambush listening. Anything that's said, there's no opportunity. You're not looking for the silver lining in anything that's said. No optimism. You're just ready to attack. So that's ambush listening. Now, I feel like that's what breaks down conversation, negotiation, you know, whatever kind of verbal back and forth for the sake of understanding or common ground. You know what I'm saying? That right there, if you get into a place where you start to defensively listen, and in turn you start to ambush with your listening, take a step back. Just like relax, let your emotions settle down, calm down, you know, come back to your rationale, come back to your logic, you know, for that moment to get whatever needs to be done in that conversation that got you so ready to explode, you know, and blow up. Just mindfully listen. You might not agree with what you're listening to, but listen, soak it in. Again, trust your observation and your ability to organize what you're listening to make an intelligent response, emotional or otherwise, you know? Very important. When it comes to listening to somebody you know is against you, at that time, you don't need to mindfully listen. At the very least, you need to be defensively listening, in my opinion. At the very least, because what's not said could be your downfall, especially if you know somebody's against you. What's not said is what you need to be focusing on or paying attention to. You see, because I feel as though your enemy will use flattery to ease your defenses, you know, to lower your defenses, to get everything on a cool level, and then all the while, you feel me, they already planning to do you in. But in that defensive listening, do it from a sincere place for the sake of self-preservation and for the sake of, for lack of a better term, righteousness. You know what I'm saying? For the right reason. You feel me? Be in that defensive listening mode, paying attention, observing, you know, organizing the info you get. You know what I'm saying? For the sake of your solidifying your position or building on your position. But listening in that way, when you know there's an enemy, I would just say don't listen to what they talking about. There's nothing to be said or heard or received from somebody you know is against you. But that's not me saying that you should not pay attention to your adversary, your known enemy, your known adversary. I'm not saying that. I'm saying I would limit what's being listened to, what you're soaking in, what you're allowing to influence, you feel me, your ability to listen. Because once corrupted, if your listening skills become tainted, it's coming from a place of bitterness, you'll never be able to elevate from your current understanding to, you know, be able to take on more understanding or build on your current understanding. You'll never be able to because you're ineffectively listening. And that's very important in the acquisition of knowledge, understanding, all that, not just in conversation. You see, it's important in conversation. Do not get me twisted, because there's nothing worse than talking to somebody that's just like dominating the conversation. They're not soaking anything in with their two ears. They just letting their mouth run, going on and on and on and on and on, you know? And then you might refer back to something you might have said just to see if they was listening. And sure enough, they look dumbfounded like, when you said that? You know, like, you're not listening, bro, at all. And then it get to a point where you stop listening, you just hearing them. They just talking, you hear what they saying. Yeah, I hear you. I hear what you're saying. You know, but you're not listening though. You feel me? Just like if you give instructions to somebody, they go out, you know what I'm saying, straight from the play. they do something their own way, you know what I'm saying? Which everybody's well within their rights to do what they do. But as far as instructions are concerned, you're expecting things to be carried out the way you lay them out. You see what I'm saying? With the consent of the person following the instructions. Let me put it like that. So the person deviate from the play, you know, then you get back to a situation where you're conversating about what went wrong, you know what I'm saying? Well, how can we prevent this thing from going wrong again? And then come to find out, you might have brung up what the play was, you know, and she might say, you know, yeah, I heard you. Yeah, you heard me, but were you listening though? So check it out. Listen to what I'm telling you, you know? Then you break it down knowing that the person is listening because it's a difference. It's a difference. And mindfully listen. I got to stress that point too. There's a difference between just listening, just for the sake of listening. That's no different than hearing to me. You know, you could be like looking at somebody, giving them the body language that you are paying attention, you are listening, but you're not soaking up anything being said. Not like you're consenting to what you're soaking up or should be soaking up, but just to consider, you know, for the sake of your understanding, for the sake of growing past your current position in an upward way, you know? You just like a deer in headlights, like looking, but not really retaining or soaking up anything, you know? How can you grow from that point if that's what you're doing? You're just hearing the person and not listening. Because in conversation, I try to listen to everybody I'm in conversation with. That's why if I feel as though you're against me, it's best for me not to converse with you, because I do listen. And then if I know you're my enemy, if I know you're against me, my antithesis, you know, I'm defensively listening, naturally. Like it's a natural course of events. You see what I'm saying? If I know for a fact that you're against me. But in every other case, where there's peace between the conversants, the people conversing, the conversation, whoever I'm engaged with, if it's all cool, all love, I'm listening, interpreting, you know what I'm saying? Organizing the information to respond. And in your response, you will see if what you interpreted and organized, if you're willing to understand or you want to understand and come to a common ground, you'll realize at that point, once you respond from an intelligent place, based on what you observed, organized, and interpreted, if you're on the right track as far as coming to that understanding, once you respond from that, after mindfully listening. But you're going to get off on the wrong page every time if you're defensively listening. And especially if you're ambush listening, you know what I'm saying? Waiting to attack. You're going to get it wrong every time. There's no opportunity to come to a common ground because you've already made your mind up to attack. You know what I'm saying? To already wait and look for the offense. So when it comes to listening and conversation, it is extremely, extremely, extremely important, because I feel as though the goal of listening should be for the sake of understanding, common ground, coming to a resolution if there's a conflict involved, you know what I'm saying? But just for the sake of interaction with human beings out in the world, those of like kind of the tribe and those otherwise, you know? You should be listening for the sake of building on your understanding, mindfully. Make it a skill, you know what I'm saying? Make it a technical skill, a practical skill to mindfully listen, to listen to what you are hearing, because if something drop, if a dime drop, right? I heard it. Yeah, I heard the dime drop, but mindfully listening is, okay, why did the dime drop? How did it drop? You know what I'm saying? When did it drop? Not that you said overanalyze everything, but you should be mindful about what you're hearing, you know? And everything is not meant to be analyzed. That being said, there are certain times where you do need to process what's being heard or listened to. It's very important. Now, there's a time and place for everything. There's a time to speak, a time to listen. If you agree, follow me down this road. You know what I'm saying? If that's the case, sometimes there's a time to listen and a time not to listen. When is the time right not to listen? I say, if it's up to a point where you know there's no getting through to whoever is listening to you, whoever you're trying to get across your point to, whoever you're trying to reach, if you know that there's no way for you to reach them and penetrate their psyche, their mentality, their understanding, whatever, you know, no need to listen to what they presenting to you, because it's not reciprocity in that situation. It's just you considering what they're feeding you. There should be give and take both ways. A time to speak and a time to listen. You see? A time to speak and a time to respond. Each person should play each part. You know what I'm saying? At the right time, at the given time. So, again, the goal of listening should be to understand, bro. That should be the goal. If that's not the goal in your interaction, when you're trading conversation with somebody, you know, if that's not the goal of each party, that might not be a situation you need to share or invest your conversation in. You see what I'm saying? That might not be the opportunity right there. You might need to find a different location, a different situation, a different conversation. You know what I'm saying? You got to find a different one, because the last thing you want to do is waste time listening to something that won't gain not only you anything as far as understanding, not monetarily, but like understanding, guidance, whatever you need, whatever's needed. If you waste your time listening to something that can't provide those things, what good does that do you? What good does that do the person you're listening to? You're wasting time. It does nobody any good. And you should not be wasting time by listening to that which is not productive, that which is not positive, that which is not for your growth, for your benefit. And the benefit should be mutually. You feel me? It should be mutually. At times, I have a problem with when I listen, what I interpret, you know what I'm saying, from what I listened to, what I heard, is sometimes off, you know, and that's natural because everybody doesn't think the same way. Everybody's thinking process is different, you know? But again, if your goal is understanding the times you are wrong, you know, seek a way off of the wayward path. You know what I'm saying? As far as that understanding is concerned, seek you know, the right way. Seek not to be astray no more. Again, let me touch on this too. Humility, to me, you see, is understanding who you are, being strong in who you are, but choosing to place yourself in a lower capacity as far as not being dominant or taking control or taking the initiative. You're choosing to place yourself there. That does not mean you're weak. That does not mean you should accept or endure everything thrown at you for being humble. You see, I don't agree with that. And when you listen, that's a humble position. Listening is a humble position, but a very powerful position. Speaking, of course, because there's something being relayed, the verb of speaking, you're doing the action, you're moving, you're doing. You see what I'm saying? That right there is the opposite of humility, because you're expressing, you're giving. You see? The one receiving is the humble one, because it's not their time to give. So I refuse to buy into humble is weak, inferior, lower, lesser, quiet. You know, listening, just because you listen doesn't mean you're a quiet person either. There's a time to observe and listen to, you know, and not always speak. It might not be your time to express what you've observed. You get me? You feel what I'm saying? It might not be your time to share what you've interpreted. But there will come a time where you will need to express what you listen to, organized, and interpreted. But knowing the right time is a skill. That's an art. You have to know when to share and when to receive. As far as conversation is concerned, listening and speaking. In other areas, other aspects of life too, but namely, since we're speaking about listening, you know what I'm saying? Listen to me when I tell you, you know, there's a time and place. You will play each position if everything goes accordingly. Now, you will be in a situation where somebody is going to want to dominate the conversation and there will be no listening involved. What do I think you should do? What would I do? Slide. I don't got time. You know, it should be a give and take kind of situation. Now, giving instructions is different. As far as courses of action, if you have an understanding on how to achieve a certain goal and you're giving instructions, that's only a somebody's listening and then somebody is giving. You know what I'm saying? Now, that's not to say that you totally zip your lip. If you hear the instructions and have a question about the instruction, or you have a question as to why you're being instructed to do da 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 da, so you understand and are able to put your, faith and your submission behind the plan, that's all cool. I agree with that 100. You should say something. Let it be known. Don't just jump out there and look and be the duck because you're not even sure. You know what I'm saying? What the move is, the reason behind the move. You know what I'm saying? Now you half-hearted stepping, and you're gonna slip up. You bound to slip. But as far as giving instructions, one person is giving, one person is listening. And the person that's giving the instruction should be able to listen as well when that person does have a question or is trying to figure out or come to an understanding, That goes back to that humility. Even the person giving instructions should have the ability to be humble. The type of humility I just broke down, not like the conventional wisdom humility, I feel like people dirtied that term up, bro. Again, that goes back to negative connotations, right? Check out one of my other videos, man, about submission. You see what I'm saying? I talk about negative connotations, but that's another one. Humility, you hear that, automatically you think weak, soft, quiet, timid, all that. You see what I'm saying? What's the guy, Selassie, the Ethiopian emperor. You see what I'm saying? He was very humble, but he was very powerful. Yeah, so he's an example of how humility can be used in a powerful manner. It's all in how it's channeled, But when misused, it can, mislead as far as how people are viewing that humility, what it actually means. So when it comes to being in a humble position, as far as your listening is concerned, you won't always be in that position. Again, time and place for all things. With listening, with being humble, there's a time and place for everything. Knowing the proper time is the important factor, Knowing when to listen, who to listen to, how to properly interpret and organize what you're listening to come to an understanding. That should be the goal. Should be the goal, right? What makes it difficult to hear? At times, our emotions. What makes it difficult to listen is our emotions at times, how we feel. You see? Especially when it's a negative emotion being felt. It's very hard to listen, and that's the most important time to listen. Because if you misread, if you listen from a defensive place or a place of ambush, you're gonna make the wrong step that'll end you, put you in jail, prison, under the ground. It can go wrong in many ways. Not just fatally though, you could destroy a relationship with somebody, destroy a potential deal that you're negotiating, if you don't mindfully listen. So, of the utmost importance, listening. Now, don't let anybody abuse your ability to listen if you're a good listener. Because we've all heard that term before, people like to believe they're good listeners, but in reality, that's not the case. If you really think about it. Because just because you sit quiet and you're looking, giving somebody your attention, if you're not processing or soaking up what you're listening to, you are not a good listener. You're not a good listener. And it's okay not to be a good listener, because you can start today tightening up your listening skills for the better, and you'll be beneficial to not only yourself, but all who are involved and are able to partake in your, superb listening skills, So, and again, there were times where I would be in a situation where it was not for me to say anything or speak. I was just supposed to listen. And the times where I did share my observation, whether through listening, through what I saw, visualized, you know, whatever, experience, whatever, you know, when I forfeited the time where I should have been listening and I shared, misunderstanding occurred. Beyond disagreement. I'm talking about misunderstanding, period.
Life's a catastrophe, but if you're asking me, we should pass the tragedy. Hand to hand, like damn it, man, our plan to stand, never withstand their plan to disband us. Birth by mistake, parents never planned us to this place we hate. Prejudged, plus they reprimand us. Still shot dead if I stand with my hands up. If you care to understand us, why not treat us like a man when our hands are cuffed? To the spineless ones of us, to the men sharing the same skin, still stuck, what will it take?